Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about how to kind of set yourself up uh, for a good holiday season. So we want to be able to enjoy. We want to be able to eat some of the things that we enjoy eating. This will be a very different holiday, likely than what we've had before, and that's okay. So we just have to modify and make a few changes and just adapt. Right? That's what we do is we adapt. Especially being in what we've been in for as long as we have, we just adapt and we learn to do what we can and we do the best that we can. Right? And so what I'm going to talk about is not just eating, but lifestyle stuff. So many of the things that I talk about in Ayurveda is following the Ayurvedic clock. So for those of you that have been following me for a while, we draw the clock and then we put all our times in there of when we normally eat. But the idea is to keep your schedule as close to what you normally do as possible. And that means sometimes you make some changes. And maybe this is the year to make those changes, that if you do have get-togethers, that you say, hey, can we do it a little bit earlier this year versus eating at 8 or 9 or late at night, or going to events that are just a little bit later, or eating before you go, and then maybe having a treat but not spending so much time um, eating that extra stuff, because the holiday starts what, this week, and then goes all the way till New Year's, right? It doesn't really stop in that period of time, although we will have, it will be a little bit different this year with gatherings being different than what they normally are, and events and work events, and we won't have all the extra stuff, which might be kind of nice to be able to settle in a little bit more. So one of the things I want to mention is eating, making sure that you're still eating early. So I really push in my courses that you're eating at a decent time. So decent time means 6 o'clock-ish. It means, okay, 7 o'clock is fine. But if you go to bed early, what happens is it can throw off a lot of your other schedules, your other biological clocks in your body, especially the ones that detoxify and get rid of things at night. And that's really important this time of year. If we're going to take in more sugar, if we're going to take in more foods that we normally don't eat, we want to make sure that our digestive system is working properly. So if we can make sure that we're eating at a decent time, so maybe if you have any control over the food or the preparation of the food, that you make sure that you're eating at that 6 o'clock time or earlier. If you're eating at 7, fine, but then you want to make sure that you're cutting everything out after that. And then maybe instead sipping on some tea or some digestive tea. Digestive tea will help you to be able to process the food a little bit better. And plus, it's something that's going to have a little bit of weight to it. So that's a nice thing about drinking teas, is that they offer almost like a food-ish quality. And you can let the other people still eat. And sometimes this is difficult for us, but at the same time, if your health and wellness is a number one priority, then you make that a priority. And it isn't necessarily that you're butting heads, you're just doing what you can to take care of yourself. And I have to talk to mothers about this a lot when I work with women that are my age or younger. And they find that, oh, I have to eat with my family. It's like, well, no, you don't. You can eat earlier. And then what you do is you can still sit and be with your family. You don't necessarily have to eat the food with your family if they're eating at 8 or 9 o'clock, because they have sports or activities or events that they go to, or things, activities, whatever it may be, or they're playing outside, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that you're keeping yourself as close to your schedule as possible, because our body releases certain hormones at a certain time. So our body releases ghrelin and leptin. So ghrelin makes our body hungry, leptin creates our body's satiety. So we want to make sure that we're continuing these practices, because otherwise, when we go back into January, when we have all these New Year's resolutions, we're starting all over again. It's that much harder to reset our bodies. Where if we keep things fairly consistent, it's going to be much easier to stay on track and to make sure that our digestive system knows when it has to release the right foods. Another thing that a lot of people focus on is like, oh, I'm not going to eat my noon meal because I want to save it for the evening. And this is probably the worst thing you could possibly do, is skipping the noon meal. Eat your noon meal. Maybe it's a little bit smaller, but I wouldn't recommend that. That's nothing that I would recommend. Eat your biggest meal in the middle of the day, maybe even having your holidays celebrated a little closer to the middle of the day versus in the evening might help out a lot too. And then keep that meal at night smaller if you can. If it's just on turkey day, That's one day. It's not going to be so bad. But if you continue that cycle throughout the holidays, that's when you start gaining your weight, because your body does not know when to release the right hormones to be able to produce the right juices to be able to digest the food. And that's a whole other lecture, but that's the short, fuzzy version of it. Next thing would be to introduce ginger into your diet. So if you don't do much with ginger, there is a big difference. So you've got the ginger that you buy in the store as the root, ginger root, and then you have the powdered ginger. So they both have a lot of the same benefits, except that the fresh ginger has more potency to it because it has the natural oils, it has the juice that goes along with it. Plus, it tastes so much better. I do not like dry ginger. If I put it in a seasoning to spice something, it's one thing, but I don't like ginger tea that isn't fresh ginger. If it's mixed in a combination, fine, but not just plain ginger tea. But that's the tea that I would recommend, is a ginger tea. And if you're great with the powdered ginger works good. You can put powdered ginger and make a tea yourself, or you can get some fresh ginger and chop it up. So you're gonna cut off the skin, because the skin can hold a little bit of mold to it. It does age in time. It's like anything. So make sure you cut off the skin, and then just chop it up and put it in hot water. It's really good. And if you put a little lemon and a little bit of honey in there, it's even better. So those things will help with immune function, which is something we're all shooting for right now, and then with digestive stuff. So it's a really good digestive aid. So it's something you can drink and carry in like a water bottle. So I'd highly recommend this also. So that's actually the next thing, is stay hydrated. So these can kind of go together. You want to make sure that you stay hydrated during the holiday. A, because we tend to forget, and B, because we tend to forget. And we're taking in more sugars and the food that's harder to digest. So we want to make sure that we're drinking the water, and not just before and after we eat, because that'll actually slow down our digestive system. And we don't want to do that when we're eating foods we don't normally eat, or if we're eating more sugar than we normally eat. So taking a water bottle, especially warmer water. I really push warm waters and teas because of the benefit of heating up our digestive fire, of releasing our lymphatic system. So many of my clients, we do hot sips. Hot sips mean we put hot water in a water bottle and we sip it throughout the day. So it's kind of a constant sip, sip, sip. And the idea is that it helps to be able to helps our lymphatic system. So think of your lymphatic system when it's clogged up as having like a butter type substance. When the butter is cold, it clogs it up. When the butter is warm, it slides right on through. And because a lot of the lymphatic system draws out fats and proteins out of our body, likely that consistency is probably pretty close. So we want to make sure that our body can have optimal digestion is great, but we also want the lymphatic system, the drains of our system, to be able to pull the toxins out, to be able to keep our immune system strong. So drinking hot sips helps to incorporate this, helps to melt the system so that it can digest easier and so it can process easier. Plus, colder foods actually clog up our body quite a bit. And kaphas, so the bigger body types, the bigger boned body types, we'll notice this even more this time of year, that if they eat ice cream, they will instantly get the phlegm ball in their throat, which I think is just hilarious when I hear a kapha go, because they've created the phlegm ball. And I'm not saying that they're the only ones. I know that I get that too. I don't eat ice cream in the wintertime unless it's a special occasion with my family or something, but it's not something I consistently do. But you'll notice the instant phlegm production when you eat something, especially something that's cold and moist like that and heavy. It's going to create that. But any cold, if you notice that you start to get phlegm or accumulation, postnasal drip, congestion in your sinuses, probably should start drinking warmer liquids. Teas are great. Herbal teas are even better. Caffeine is fine, but you don't want to be drinking it anytime after about noon or later, because it can keep you up at night. All right, keeping your body moving. So want to make sure that you're keeping up with your activity. And it can be as simple as making sure that you go for a morning walk, making sure that you go for an evening walk. So spending 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, just with a little bit of activity, especially if you're finding that it's really tight for time. If you have more time, just continue your workouts that you've been doing. Join a yoga class. I'm a big promoter of yoga. I know that I teach it. It's been my life for 24 years. Is probably a reason for that. But one of the things yoga does is it compresses our lymphatic system and it releases our lymphatic system. So that pressure and that release is ideal to keep the lymphatic system moving, moving our body. So yoga is probably the best thing you can do for your lymphatic system and your digestive system because of the twisting. So you're wringing out the digestive system, which again is linked to the lymph nodes and being able to keep them going. So making sure that you're moving your body. You can go for walks, you can do yoga, the running if that's your thing. There's a lot of different exercises you can do, but I would say yoga and walking are probably the most beneficial. Not that I'm going to push runners away from running. Keep on doing your running thing. That's perfectly fine, because that pounding is really good for jolting the lymphatic system. All right. Follow the Ayurvedic schedule the best that you can. So again, keep your schedule as consistent as possible. Getting up about the same times every day, going to bed about the same times every day. And I know this time of year, it tends to be a little more difficult to be able to keep that schedule, but try to keep it as consistent as possible. And some of the tricks you can do is if you use melatonin is extremely effective for our bodies. And so often we look at melatonin as it helps us go to sleep. Melatonin does not do that. Melatonin does not help us go to sleep at all. What it does is it signals our body that it's time for our nighttime service crew to start working. And it's our daytime service crew to shut down. So it actually doesn't help us sleep. It tells our systems to either the nighttime systems to amp up and the daytime systems to shut down. So melatonin would be a good thing to take. The less, the better. If you take too much melatonin, it actually keeps you up because it does completely the opposite. So taking a low dose melatonin about an hour before you go to bed, it can help, especially if you've been drinking alcohol, because alcohol will actually keep you up. And if you do fall asleep with alcohol, it's not because the alcohol is causing you to sleep deeper. It actually affects your sleep in a very different way. So it doesn't allow you to have the deep sleep and be able to detoxify your body. This is why a lot of people get sick after the holidays. They think it's all because of the stress and stuff like that. It's because of the sugar from alcohol. The inconsistent schedules, our immune system is going haywire because it can't keep up with all of that. So if you can do the little things like move your body, try to keep your schedule as consistent as possible, drinking hot water or hot tea throughout the day to be able to keep the congestion out and keep your body moving, keep the digestive system going, that's going to be all key. And one of the things that I have, so you can also check on the website. So on my blog, I wrote an article about this, and then I also put a recipe on there. So there's a recipe for a kind of a tea kind of goo that you can either do. So you can either take it as a teaspoon of this concentrate, or you can mix it in a cup of hot water. It's completely your choice. But it's 1 inch of ginger, so fresh ginger, 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a pinch of turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of honey to taste. So you can have a little bit more if you would like to. What this does is if you take it before you eat, it helps to kindle your digestive fire, but also can help for cravings. So this can be key if you're going out to a lot of events, if you're finding yourself eating things or going to people's houses, or you're finding that people are sending you stuff. That might happen this year where we get sent stuff and you find that you're snacking on it a lot. You want to make sure that you have this, because what it does, it kind of dulls the taste of things, and it tastes pretty good. It's got all the tastes in it. So that's the idea, is to be able to give your body what it needs first. And then if you want to take in that cookie or whatever, then your body's at least in a good position to be able to digest it, because it helps your digestive fire. And what you can do is you can either take it as a teaspoon, which is a little potent, but I think it tastes pretty good, but I like weird things. And then you can also mix it in a cup of warm water. Make sure that the water's not too hot, because honey is carcinogenic after a certain temperature. So you want to make sure it's about sipping temperature to be able to mix it in there. And you can make a larger portion of it. So I have taken and made larger portions of it. I've taught it at my teacher training courses I've had them try it before and some of my other things. And it's really good and it does work. So at first you might be like, okay, this is a little strange. And then after a while, you do realize how much it does help. So if you have digestive issues, it might be a good way to get your digestive system kickstarted. And a lot of times we look at like acid reflux and stuff like that as a overload of digestive acids, and really it's not. It's our body's not producing it at the right time. So consistency with eating, I can't emphasize that enough, really. The consistency of eating is really, really important. So that was kind of a quickie, but I just had some things I really wanted to be able to share with you. And these are not that hard of things to be able to keep track of. And if you can keep your schedule, again, as consistent as possible, that's going to be very effective. But if you can keep in mind to just move and hydrate and making sure that you're not eating too late at night to throw off your sleep, because the sleep is going to be the number one thing. I know that when I wasn't feeling well a couple of weeks ago, that I don't know what I would have did if I wasn't getting like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. And that's not normal for me. I'm usually a 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and I'm pretty consistent. Like that does not change much unless it's like once a month I have some issues. But otherwise, I'm a pretty solid sleeper. And I do recommend, if you can get that sleep is going to keep you from getting very, very sick. So, and it's going to reduce stress. Stress is such a big portion of it. And hydrating and digesting well and sleeping well and moving your body is going to help with stress too, because it is a weird season this year. So, all right. Thank you.